Has anyone else noticed that there's been a ton of Hamlet references in pop culture right now? Whether you are singing The Fate of Ophelia and failing to keep it 100 on the land, the sea, the sky, or you're excited about the new Hamnet film coming out with our Lord and Saviour Jessie Buckley, supported by none other than Paul Mescal, on top of a plethora of other things that are Hamlet related that seem to have come out in the last few years. I've started to wonder why it's resonating, and not just because it's Shakespeare, because he's always freaking resonating, isn't he? But for me, dwelling on Hamnet led me to one particular phrase, the most famous one in the play, and that came up for me because I got the chance to see Hamnet before all of you. Yeah. For the first time in literally years, I got invited on an influencer trip. It was a day trip to Stratford-upon-Avon, which is where Shakespeare was from. For those of you who have been misinformed, no, Shakespeare was not from London. He was from where I am from, my home. Yes, it is the noble Midlands, my friends, where the economy really is ran from. Spread that propaganda. So, very excitingly, all of these flashy influencers all descended on one of the key aspects of my home turf to talk about the film and also explore a little bit about Shakespeare's life. It was so cool. We went to Shakespeare's birthplace. We went to where Shakespeare learned to read and write, in the room where it happened. We went to the church where he probably worshipped. We went to the site where his house was. We had some really nice lunch. We also did a tour of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and we got to go to the costume department. I lost my freaking mind. I love that place. Unfortunately, they weren't allowed to just leave me in the costume department, otherwise I would be vlogging just from there forever. And we topped it all off by being able to see the film early, accompanied by a harp player. Sure. Anyway, safe to say, I was a little bit of a wreck by the end of the film. I thought it was bloody brilliant, and genuinely, Jessie Buckley deserves all of the Oscars. I freaking love that woman. However, for those of you who aren't in the know, Hamnet is about Shakespeare's son Hamnet. Hamnet and Hamlet are interchangeable names in Shakespearean Britain, and the film shows a imagined moment where Shakespeare is grappling with the same question that Hamlet in the play famously asks: to be or not to be? Just in case you're not familiar with Hamlet, we are going to be mentioning very briefly the idea of dying, especially dying by... So if you don't want to hear about that, not even a little bit, I will see you in the next video. Hamnet is a film that is based on a book by Maggie O'Farrell, which is a reimagining of a time in Shakespeare's life where things were pretty bad. He actually lost one of his sons at the age of 11, and not long after, he wrote the play Hamlet. Now, I freaking loved the film. Geez, I'm a lover of the book. I thought the book was brilliant, and I think they did a really good job of adapting it. For me, the film is kind of about wanting to swap places with the people that you love, to want somebody else to stop hurting so much that you're willing to take on that hurt yourself, and the deep painful frustration of not being able to. But particularly what I think the film emphasised, and that's thanks to bloody Jessie Buckley, who is a goddamn genius and deserves an Oscar, something that I hadn't thought about as much when I was reading the book but really came out in the film, was this idea that your pain is inexplainable. That if we tell the people around us how we're feeling, or even if we make a little bit of art about it, a theatre play or a poem or a song, they're just not going to get it, and that's actually going to be worse than trying to explain it at all. But what is kind of a relief actually to learn in life and also through this film was that pain is cruel, and pain is so cruel that it doesn't even give you an edge. It doesn't even make you unique. It doesn't give you the courtesy of at least being different in your plight, to the point where you want to shout at grief and be like, come on, at least make me indie. If you can't take this away, at least make me cool. But no, and I think that's what's really cool to me about experiencing art and theatre and cinema together, in the same room as other people, because I, and by extension, one of the characters in the film, without spoiling too much, gets to have this moment where you look around and you see that your pain isn't that unique. In fact, when it's shown to them, a lot of people can understand it and how much of a relief that is, and maybe not as devastating as you think. Which is why I think in a world of like phones and on-demand shows and streaming and the encouragement to stay inside and experience art alone, we really need to get out there and watch it together. Like when you watch the film, you'll see what I mean, but freaking hell, that last scene. Just whatever you do, please do not wear mascara to the film, to the cinema. I'm just giving you some advice. Take it or leave it. Anyway, something I think that the film really brought out from the book and emphasised visually was how connected to nature the story is, especially Jessie Buckley's character. I love that, and I couldn't help but think about the climate the whole way through the film because I'm a freaking misery guts and I can never stop thinking about it. But in this way, it was kind of hopeful. There is a moment where Shakespeare's character says the words that Hamlet says in the famous play, to be or not to be, that is the question. When he delivers that line in the film, that is genuinely the first moment that I didn't think of the obvious common connotation of to be or not to be, which is essentially, shall I stick around or would I rather just die than deal with this? But also that it might have a bit more of a radical meaning. And I thought that that was a unique thought. But then I went on the internet and I realised that 2 men had already had that thought. Good for the men. Thank you, Riz Ahmed and Tristan and the Classics, which is a very cool YouTube channel I've just found out about. And if you are like an English geek and you really miss having like a little classroom literary pep talk moment with your favourite English teacher, I think you'd really like his channel. Anyway, Riz Ahmed, who is an amazing British actor, has this great talk about how Hamlet has been defanged politically. And he says, and I wrote this down because it was really cool, Hamlet is about somebody who is grieving the illusion that the world is a fair place. Oh, well, goddamn. Our friend Tristan points out that that phrase usually goes something like, to be or not to be, that is the question. When actually the iambic pentameter dictates that we'd say it, to be or not to be, that is the question. Which changes the meaning, right? It implies that you have been asking loads of other questions. You have been distracted by all the other questions. And actually, the question to ask is to be or not to be. And something that I struggle to remember myself and also to get across when I'm talking about the climate is that this isn't a side issue or something that is like some people's hobbies or something we should probably fix at some point. The question of the climate is literally to be or not to be, to live or to die. I really would love to sugarcoat it, but I don't think... Also... my coat is really... I'm just a floating head right now. To be or not to be, to literally disappear. Are the woodlands leopard print? Discuss. What was I talking about? Ah, yes, we all might die. The fact that I struggle to get across to myself and to everybody else is that this is literally a question of life or death. Do we be? Do we want to keep being? Or do we want to not be? Because there's a real chance that my generation or the one below it might be literally the last generation. And I don't know about you, but I would like to be. Quirky. I know. And crucially, there is a semicolon after that is the question. As in, here's a clarifier on the question. And Hamlet goes on to say, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Fortune here doesn't mean like all the riches and the fortune. It means like your fortunes, like what will happen to you. Outrageous fortune means like bad fortune. Or take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. And later he says, for whom would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of disprized love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, the spurns that patent merit of the unworthy takes. Unworthy takes? Is that just not the internet? Isn't that not... I'm including my channel, I suppose. Unworthytakes.com. Tell me this is not a description of your newsfeed right now. Oppressors' wrongs, proud men, the law's delay, the insolence of office. Are you kidding? William. He talks about how maybe we don't act because we're not sure what will come next, and maybe choosing the not to be also presents unknowns, like what comes next, what is after, and that worry can drive us to do nothing. The enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard our currents turn away and lose the name of action, and so we just don't act. But he's saying, is it that noble to just not do anything? Isn't that also kind of choosing not to be? To choose not to fight back? Isn't that kind of the same as dying? The choice is to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. by opposing end them. Lena, how did you spend your 30s? I spent mine walking around the woods on my own, shouting Shakespeare lines and asking about whether leopard print is nature's neutral. And so, like in my video recently where I talked about this idea of just dropping personal goals for a little while, for not trying to glow up or get hotter or get a perfect morning routine, like to just drop all that for a little bit and be like, actually, what is the question of this moment? And for me, this question is, do we want to be or not be? There are only two options, and I will only be taking on things that ensure us being. When like the worst happens, when we're faced with genuinely troubling things, that is the moment where we stand on the precipice and we go, right, tap out or keep going. And I, for one, am not in a position nor have the nature to tap out. Not now. Not with all the cool people I know are in the world. We can't be leaving them to the insolence of office or the law's delay. Oh, that was a really big branch I broke. There's something really beautiful in Stratford that you can see if you look hard enough. There is a grave for Shakespeare, which you can go and see if you like. But more interestingly, Maggie O'Farrell, the author of Hamnet, helped campaign to get 2 trees planted, one for Hamnet and one for his twin, Judith, that are in the graveyard of the church where Shakespeare's buried. And there's something really beautiful about that, the fact that even after all this time, these unrecognised children for whom we don't have the bones for, who we have barely any record of what they did and what happened to them and even what they died of, somebody who makes stuff up for a living, that's what authors are, was able to give them some dignity and delayed as it was, a little bit of peace. And that's when I think dismissing the people who make stuff up might mean that we miss the moments when they do something really real with what they've made up, with the fancies of their brain, and why we should keep imagining impossible things and making stuff up about how the world's going to be, because if we don't make it up, somebody else is going to make it up for us. And I shan't be having it, because I like to be. Being is nice. I would recommend the being. Thank you so much for watching the channel this year. In a world of AI and blockbusters and a million other things to do, the fact that you've even spent a little bit of time on my humble little channel just being with me is really freaking lovely. Thank you so much to the Gumption Club. Their support this year has been amazing. Just like Shakespeare, without my patrons, I would simply not be able to make the art. And let me know in the comments, what is that on the floor? That's just a crisp packet. It was a massive condom. And let me know in the comments if you are going to go and see Hamnet. Thanks for watching. That was nice of you. Frog snog out.